Good morning, everyone. And thanks for being here today. It's absolutely beautiful here, and I hope those who aren't here are enjoying the outside. And I hope we all will too later today if we can. So I'd like to talk a little bit over the next couple weeks about one of the Mahayana sutras. Now, the Mahayana sutras were probably composed between about 100 BCE and about 400 CE in northern India. Probably most of them, if not all, were composed in Sanskrit and then subsequently translated to various languages, most notably to Chinese and to Tibetan. And our versions of the Mahayana sutras are by and large English translations from the Chinese or perhaps from the Tibetan. So who wrote these and why? Well, we don't really know. They are structured as suttas, as teachings of the Buddha. But oftentimes the main speaker is someone other than the Buddha. The Buddha serves as an approving audience. And one of these sutras, some of them are quite short, but most of them are quite long. This one is sort of medium in length. The Vimala Kirti Sutra is perhaps unique among these sutras in that the main speaker is a layperson, a person like ourselves. Vimalakirti supposedly lived at the time of the Buddha and was a successful business person, had a family, but also had a sincere practice and became renowned for his deep understanding of the Buddha's teachings. The Vimalakirti Sutra is written, I think it becomes clear as you start reading it, as an allegory. It's not a literal description of occurrences at the time. It might be compared with Pilgrim's Progress or with Dante's Inferno. And Vimalakirti, during the sutra, is lying in a sickbed, talking with people who visit him. As we learn, it's possible that his sickness is something that he brought on for the purpose of attracting people to whom he could teach the Dharma, people who came to visit him in his sickbed. Whether you approve of that tactic or not, that's the way the story goes. Now, in starting to study this more, it occurred to me that it would be useful to go back to a couple of the things we've talked about in the past, perhaps when some of you were not joining us in the group. But there is a theme in many of the Mahayana sutras, including this one, that I think is important to discuss in background. And so I'd like to explore that theme with you, not with the intention of producing full understanding, because I don't think it's that sort of thing. It's more with the intention of arousing appreciation and curiosity. So the theme I'm referring to is the theme of emptiness, of shunyata, the Sanskrit word, shunyata. The theme of shunyata is magnified in these Mahayana sutras. The Buddha talked about anatta, no self. And we've discussed how at the time of the Buddha, the personality was understood as having, 5 parts: form, feeling, perception, mental fabrications, and consciousness. And the Buddha insisted that none of those were self. Thus the concept of no self. In the Mahayana teachings, this notion is extended to all forms and all phenomena, all conditioned phenomena. So that all dharmas, dharma here used in the to mean form or to mean phenomena and not to mean the teachings of the Buddha, but all dharmas, as it says, are marked with shunyata. Now, we encounter this in the Diamond Sutra very poetically. So at the conclusion of the Diamond Sutra, it says, "So I say to you, this is how to contemplate our conditioned existence in this fleeting world, like a tiny drop of dew, or a bubble floating in a stream, like a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, or a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom, or a dream. So is all conditioned existence to be seen." So think about a car, if you have one, or if your neighbor has one. Thich Nhat Hanh was fond of explaining emptiness in terms of objects and their non-object elements. So when you think about a car seems like a fairly discrete thing. You have to expend quite a bit of time and energy to procure a car and to maintain it so that you can get from one place to another relatively quickly and perhaps carry things like groceries, whatever. So it seems like a fairly discrete thing. But you can also consider that it has many non-car elements, like the iron ore that was mined, the steel factory, the whatever fuel was used to fire the kiln to form the metal, all of the ancient plants and animals that became what we call petroleum. It was used to make plastic parts for the car. The coders who wrote the code for the computer-assisted design software to design the vehicle, and of course, all the people involved in transporting and selling the vehicle so that you can have a car. So there are many non-car elements to the car. And also, another thing we come to realize fairly quickly when you own a car or lease one is that as soon as it leaves the assembly line, it starts to deteriorate in various ways. First, the softer parts, like the wiper blades and the tires and the brake shoes, the gaskets, and then the harder parts, like the fenders and the frame, ultimately perhaps the pistons and the engine block. So that at some point, the car ends up, what we call the car, ends up being a block of compacted steel down at the riverfront at those metal remanufacturing plants along Broadway. And the plastic parts likely end up in a landfill someplace. That being said, though, the car is useful for allowing us to, as I say, move rather quickly from one place to another. And the concept of car, whereas we might be called empty, is also useful. Another object to consider would be a bridge abutment along the highway, made of concrete with many non-abutment elements, such as sand and gravel, cement, and the factory workers who worked in the cement factory, as well as some of the air that's trapped in the concrete and the water that mixes with the cement, the clouds that produce the rain that brings the clear water. So many non-abutment elements. And like the car, the abutment deteriorates over time. It may take decades, but small cracks appear. Water gets into the cracks, freezes, widens the cracks, and eventually, the abutment returns to sand and gravel. That all being said, however, even though the abutment might be said to be empty and the car might be said to be empty, if you drive your car into the abutment at high speed, there will be blood. So that is one of the themes of another Mahayana sutra that many of you are familiar with. And that is the Heart Sutra. Roshi Katagiri's translation of this starts like this: O Shariputra, or at least towards the beginning, is O Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness, emptiness does not differ from form. That which is form is emptiness, that which is emptiness, form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. So while form can be said to be empty, form is emptiness, emptiness is also form. So the world of form that we usually live in is important. So what's the use of this concept of emptiness? Well, according to Buddhist thought and North Indian thought at the time of the Buddha, not only were objects such as cars and abutments forms, but also the thoughts that arise in our mind were the object of the mind and were considered forms. So that the mind, viewed as a sense object, sensed thoughts and responded to them, just like the eye responds to the moon in the sky. So thoughts, concepts, notions are also forms. And also share this quality of emptiness. Now, during the past few weeks, months really, we have been, most of us I think, have been inundated with notions. Notions in this election year of blue and red, notions of socialism, capitalism, notions of good and bad, notions of justice and injustice, notions of black and white. Notions of fair and unfair. Inundated. And these notions, just like other forms, can be useful. Placed in the appropriate context, spatial and temporal context, ideas can be powerful. And they can lead to benefit for all. But just like if the car were placed on a rocket sent into space and put into orbit around the Earth, it would become just space debris. All of these notions, whereas they can be beneficial in a spatial or temporal context, are empty. And the power of being able to see that emptiness is that it helps protect us from becoming attached, to becoming caught up in notions. Because when people get caught up in notions, it can lead to crowds in the streets beating each other over the head with sticks. It can lead to endless wars. So the Heart Sutra encourages us to see form and emptiness. And in fact, to equate the two, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And maybe we have trouble seeing both things at the same time, seeing a form and also seeing through the form. But awareness of emptiness can help us. I think that emptiness, and I won't go into, why we call it emptiness right now. I can talk about that some other time, but the concept of emptiness, and emptiness is a concept and a notion too, and it also can be considered empty. So at some level, this is, I think, ungraspable. But just because it's ungraspable doesn't mean it's not useful to contemplate, to appreciate, and to work with. So I think I'll stop there. And what is your understanding of emptiness? And is this a useful idea? How can we use it? How can we bring this notion into our everyday life as we navigate this world of forms? Thank you so much.